Hana City Spaceport was chaotic with the launch of starships returning youth program trainees to their near and distant homeworlds. In the central passenger cabin of the Naboo vessel Jaffin 3, Palpatine and a young trainee from Karen were comparing notes on their experiences during the previous week. On a track to becoming close friends, despite their political differences, the pair had segued into discussing Naboo's upcoming election when a flight attendant interrupted them to say that Palpatine needed to return immediately to the spaceport terminal. The attendant didn't know who had requested his presence or why, but no sooner had he entered the connector than he recognized the stern countenance of one of the security guards his father had recently hired. "Palpatine won't be reboarding," the guard told the attendant. Confused, Palpatine demanded to know why he had been removed from the ship. "Your father is here," the guard said after the attendant had re-entered the starship. He pointed through the connector's transparasteel viewport to the far side of the field, where sat a sleek starship bearing the crest of House Palpatine. Palpatine blinked in surprise. "When did he arrive?" "An hour ago. Your mother and siblings are also aboard." "They didn't say anything to me about coming here." "I wouldn't know about that," the guard said. "You've already cleared Chandrila Customs, so we can proceed directly to the ship." Palpatine glared at him. "Just discharging your orders, is that it?" Unruffled, the guard shrugged his broad shoulders. "It's a job, kid. That's the long and short of it." Surrendering to the inevitable, but angered by the sudden change in plans, Palpatine trailed the guard through a maze of similar connectors to one that accessed the family starship. The elder Palpatine was waiting in the entry airlock. "Why wasn't I informed of this beforehand?" Palpatine demanded. His father nodded for the guard to seal the hatch. "Your mother and siblings are aft. I'll join you there once we've completed the jump." Maneuvering around Palpatine, he slipped into the cockpit. Palpatine turned to the airlock hatch and considered leaving while he had the chance, but ultimately thought better of it and went aft, though into not the main compartment, but a smaller one that housed the communications suite. Strapped into an acceleration chair, he stewed through the launch and the jump to hyperspace. Unfastening himself when the ship was between worlds, he stood up and began to pace back and forth in the cabin, and was still in motion when his father entered a few minutes later. "Our course is set for Trommel Minor." Palpatine stopped to stare at him. "For the foreseeable future, you're going to be residing with the Grijatus family. Clothes and other items we thought you'd like to have with you are already aboard." When Palpatine said nothing, he continued. "You and Janus got along well the last time we visited. A change of scene will do you good." "You decided this without conferring with me?" Palpatine managed to ask at last. "What about my university courses? What about my obligations to the youth program?" "That has all been arranged. You can partner with Janus in Trommel Minor's program." "The Grijatus' hatred of non-humans meets with your approval, then?" "Their chauvinism notwithstanding, I approve of them a lot more than I do of your current friends." Palpatine began shaking his head. "No, no." His father's tone turned harsh. "This is for your own good." Palpatine's nostrils flared. "Father of lies," he muttered. "How would you know what's good for me? Have you ever even cared? This is about my friendship with Higo Damask, isn't it?" The elder Palpatine snorted in derision. "Is that what you think it is? Damask is merely using you as a means of securing information about our strategies for the election." "Of course he is." Taken aback momentarily, Kusinga said, "And yet you continue to befriend him?" "What you consider the rape of Naboo, I consider to be an essential step forward, and Higo Damask a blessing. He's powerful, influential, and brilliant, more so than any of my professors, head and shoulders above you or any of your royal confederates." Kusinga's lip curled. "It begins to sound to me that this confrontation goes beyond mere political differences." "You know it does. You're using the situation as an excuse to put me under your thumb again.
Which wouldn't be necessary if you showed even the slightest ability to conduct yourself appropriately.
Palpatine sniffed. My social infractions and trespasses. I refuse to go over old ground.
You're easy on yourself, considering the shame you've nearly brought on us.
I've brought no more shame on the family than you have.
We're not discussing me,
Kosinga said. Palpatine threw up his hands. All right, leave me on Chommel Minor, but I won't remain there.
I can see to it that you do.
By assigning some of your muscle men to keep me in line? I'm a lot smarter than them, Father.
Kosinga made his lips a thin line. After what you already did to counter our plans for Tapalo, there can be no hint of scandal. Have you no idea what's at stake for Naboo?
And for you, Palpatine said with a sly smile. The brother of your mistress becomes king, and you attain the lofty position you've always desired but don't deserve.
Kosinga flung his words with cruel abandon. It will be so good to have you gone.
Finally, you admit as much. Kosinga was suddenly crestfallen.
You're as much a mystery to me now as you were when you were young.
Palpatine's smile bloomed. Only because you lack the ability to understand me fully.
Grandiose as ever.
Grandiose in fact, Father. You have no idea what I'm capable of. No one does.
Kosinga exhaled deeply. I know that you are of my blood, because I had you tested just to be certain. But in truth, I don't know where you came from, who or what you're actually descended from. He glared at Palpatine. Yes, there it is. That glower I have been on the receiving end of for 17 long years, as if you want to murder me. Murder has always been in your thoughts, hasn't it? You've merely been waiting for someone to grant you permission to act. A darkness came over Palpatine's face.
I don't need anyone's permission.
Precisely. You're an animal at heart.
King of the beasts, Father, Palpatine said.
I knew this day would come. I've known it since the first moment I tried to swaddle you, and you fought me with a strength that was too powerful for your size or age.
Palpatine looked out from beneath his quirked eyebrows. I was born mature, Father, fully grown, and you hated me for it, because you grasped that I was everything you can never be.
Hated you more than you know, Kosinga said, allowing his ire to rise once more. Enough to want to kill you from the start.
Palpatine stood his ground. Then you had better do it now. Kosinga took a step in Palpatine's direction, only to be hurled back against the bulkhead separating the communications room from the main cabin. A female voice from behind the closed hatch asked in distress, "What was that?" Nursing an injured shoulder, Kosinga looked suddenly like a trapped animal, his eyes wide with surprise and fear. He made a move to strike the handplate that opened the hatch, but Palpatine thwarted his effort without raising a finger. Twisting violently around, Kosinga fell over one of the acceleration chairs, bloodying his face as it struck the armrest. A pounding began on the hatch.
"Guards!"
Kosinga shouted. But the word had barely left his lips when the bulkhead against which he was slouched buckled inward, heaving him face first to the floor and driving the breath from him. Palpatine stood rooted in place, his hands trembling in front of him, and his face stricken. Something stirred behind his incandescent eyes. He heard the pounding on the hatch and whirled. "Don't come in! Stay away from me! What have you done?" It was his mother's voice, panicked. "What have you done?" Kosinga pushed himself to his knees and began a terrified retreat, leaving smears of blood on the deck. But Palpatine was advancing on him now.
"If the Force birthed you, then I curse it," Kosinga rasped. "I curse it."
As I do, Palpatine growled. The hatch began to slide too, and he heard the voice of the guard who had escorted him from the Jaffin 3.
Stop!
Kosinga! His mother screamed. Palpatine pressed the palms of his hands to his head. Then, in eerie calm, streaked to the hatch, pulled the surprised guard through the threshold, and tossed him clear across the cabin. Raising his face to the ceiling, he shouted, "We're all in this now!